Brought to you by FanDuel, and as always, Sunday night live stream. We have Zack Guggenheim with us once again, and this is the perfect episode for Zack to be here because we are dedicating this entire episode to the 24-team playoff leaked document. I don't know how ESPN got it. Apparently, the Big Ten's leaking stuff to ESPN now. But I'm sure we get to a whole conspiracy theory on who's leaking stuff to who and everything like that if we wanted to. But nonetheless, we got a leaked document of the 24-team playoffs that the Big Ten is trying to get the SEC on board with. We'll talk about it all. We'll have a great discussion with all of it. And I think Zack is going to have a whole lot of thoughts on this whole 24-team situation. Do you have thoughts, Zack?
Me? Ever have thoughts? Hold on. Before we get to 24 teams, can we just applaud once again the NCAA for doing something right, which is upholding Connor Stallion's ban?
Yes. Congratulations, NCAA.
That's twice in like a week.
Well, did you see my tweet on it?
No, I'm off Twitter now.
Oh, that's right. You're not on Twitter.
Yeah.
I said, pro tip, don't throw all the evidence into a lake and maybe you'll get away with it. Like I can see him going to court and coming up on the stand. I don't even know if they went to court or anything, but going on the stand and then being like, so where's the evidence? And it's like, in the bottom of a lake. They're like, you're not guilty. Why is it in the bottom of a lake?
It just feels like something out of like a sitcom, a really poorly written sitcom.
Yeah, that it does.
But also, I say good job, NCAA. We're congratulating the NCAA on like what are the most obvious outcomes. So therefore, the NCAA still stinks.
They got to get their wins when they can get them, right?
But is it really a win? It's like when Ohio State beats Grambling State. Like, is it really a win?
Well, but they're not Ohio State. They're like, who's the worst Power 14? They're like Stanford. It's like Stanford, congrats. You beat Fresno State. I don't even know if Stanford would beat Fresno State. They might lose.
That feels like an insult to Stanford.
Kind of good.
That really feels like an insult to Stanford.
All right, well, let's see who we have here in the chat with us. As always, the chat is here on Sunday night. Look at this. Sam the Man came in with becoming a new YouTube member. Sam, appreciate you being here.
Sam.
JR, Zack, what's up? What's up, Sam the Man? Appreciate you being here. Steely Matt, reposting the stream on Twitter/X. Thank you for doing that, Steely Matt. Anybody else who's listening on Twitter and X, please do so. Philip coming in here with the ILL, I there, Philip. Appreciate you being here. Philip says things don't get leaked unless someone wants it out there. Zack, do you have a conspiracy theory on who leaked it to ESPN? Joe does, but we'll get to that after yours.
I wholeheartedly agree with Philip with everything he said, except that you should uphold my suspension. So I don't think that should happen.
Listen, show prep is a lot more when I don't have Zack with me. So Zack's suspension is only going to happen when he wants to be suspended. So Joe says that Paul Feinbaum broke into Big Ten headquarters, allegedly. I like this story. I think this is the story we'll go with, Zack.
I mean, I love it, except how crafty do you think Feinbaum really is? Like, do we really put a lot of stock in, like, could you imagine Feinbaum dressed in like black garb with like the ski mask, trying to climb up somewhere to sneak through a window? Like, somebody on AI has to make this video now.
Well, isn't that like part of the thing? Like he would not, like you would not expect this from him, so he can be the one that goes and does it because you never see it coming. You don't expect it, right?
It's true, but I want to see evidence of it because I think it'd be hilarious.
Yeah. Evil Badger Ryan Willie says Michigan leaked it allegedly.
Oh gosh, that would be.
Was it Connor
on
Stallion?
brand? On brand?
Well, if Connor did it, it'd be in the bottom of a lake. Get it and put it in the lake. Okay. Get rid of this. We don't want this.
Oh no.
Tony Petiti runs in like, that was my only copy.
Okay. Oh
no,
God.
it's gone. Fight on, Natties. JR, Zack, fight on, Natties. Appreciate you being here. All right, let's get to this. All right, so Zack and I are going to go into our little boxes over here, and we're just going to bring the 2014 playoff here so that way everybody can see it. And this is going to be the only topic for the episode because this is such a big topic, and there's so much to talk about with this 2014 playoff. So if you are not aware, Friday, Pete Thamel came out with an explosive tweet that a leaked document of the 2014 playoff that the Big Ten has been advocating for was leaked to ESPN. He brought it to light and was showing it on Twitter/X and explained it in an article. I could take my victory lap here and tell you that everything I've told you has been correct about it. I'm not going to take that victory lap, but I do want you to know that I was correct. Okay. Anyway,
take the victory lap. Take the victory lap.
Okay. I was correct. Thank you everybody for listening. All right. Now that'll be my victory lap. I don't like taking victory laps. I don't like being that guy. Every time somebody does that on a podcast, I'm like, can we just listen to the podcast? Anyway, I'm doing it right now and I hate that I'm doing it. So we're just going to move on. The 2014 playoff is essentially a 16-team playoff with play-in games for the spots like 9 through 16. So you have your top 8 seeds, which are all bye games, and then your 9 through 24 are all play-in games that essentially play on conference championship weekend. So instead of having the conference championship games, you would then have these games that are here on the 2014 playoff. If you're listening on podcast, I'll do my best to try and explain it to you a little bit. But essentially, you're getting games like Michigan versus Utah, Miami versus Iowa, Alabama versus James Madison. And so you're essentially replacing the Big Ten championship game, the SEC championship game, those 4 or 5 games that happened that weekend with these games instead. Vanderbilt versus Virginia, teams like that. And so Zack, I think that's where we kind of need to start with this. There is a whole lot more we could talk about with it. But in this 2014 playoff, would you be in favor? Like, are you a fan of getting rid of conference championship games for more playoff games, especially when the Big Ten is saying that they want this to be more of a kind of seeding thing to where you don't have repeat matchups, right? Where you don't get similar conference matchups. Like BYU and Houston are both from the Big 12, so they're playing in the first round, but they did not play each other last season. I would personally like to see no conference matchups, but I also understand you can't do that exactly. But just what are your thoughts on the first round of the playoff being in substitution for the conference championship games?
I understand it. And I think if you're going to expand it this large, you have to cut games somewhere. And I think it makes sense to get rid of conference championship games. You have to replace it with something that is just as lucrative, if not more lucrative, because conference championship weekend is a cash cow for particularly the Power 4 leagues and especially the Big Ten and the SEC. So you've got to replace it with something that is as big, if not bigger. And the only thing that you can is playoffs. So I am in favor of that change. I think, and maybe we'll talk about this later in the episode. I don't love that this would essentially do away with incentive for doing well in your conference. And we can talk more about that, particularly auto bids. We can talk about that later. But in base level of your question of, am I okay with getting rid of conference championship games? I almost feel like you have to if you're going to expand the playoff.
Mm-hmm. Philip says 14 versus 14 doesn't make sense. Yeah, the Virginia Vanderbilt. I redid this graphic to try to make it a little bit more visually appealing because it was like on an Excel sheet the way Pete Thamel had it. So, the Big Ten wasn't exactly going for, attractive graphicking. So I went through and redid it a little bit, but that's a typo on my part. I do believe. I apologize for that, that would be 14 verse, I think that's 8, 19, 14 verse 19 is what that would be there. So Ryan Willie says ESPN doesn't want to give up control of the CFP. And I think that's the other interesting part of the conversation of going to 24, because if you go to 16, which is what the SEC wanted, then they would essentially continue to hold the rights to the playoffs. But by going to this 24, you would be adding a whole nother round of the playoffs, which the ESPN does not currently pay for. And I believe Pete Thamel was putting it in his article a little bit, to where then these games, these kind of play-in games here, could go to other networks. ESPN could, sub-license them to TNT or something like that if they wanted to, or Fox or NBC or CBS could come in and buy up some of these games, which is, exactly what they would want to do, because they're trying to become more known as a place where you go and watch college football. Right now, ESPN, like it or not, is known as the place where you watch college football at. And so Fox, NBC, CBS want to try and change that perception with the public. And that's really what all of this comes down to, in my opinion, is all of this comes down to the Big Ten wanting to change perception. We can get to that in just a minute. But overall, this 2014 playoff thing, I think when people see it, they don't love the idea of 24 teams. And that's kind of why you get the first reaction of people like, I hate it. But I think once you investigate into it a little bit more, and if you recognize that we're not staying at 12 teams and you look at what the 16 team version is, I think most college football fans would look at this and say, yes, I would rather have this than the 16 team playoff once you start to investigate it. Again, people see 24, they don't like it. I get it. But once you start actually reading up on it, replace conference championship games, no similar matchups, or no repeat matchups that we've seen before, stuff like that. I do think that this becomes more appealing, and obviously not just ESPN, other TV broadcasts in there too. I've yammered on enough. What are your thoughts on that, Zach?
Well, I think there is a real incentive, and again, Tony Petitti is a media guy, right? He's a former TV exec. So the idea of trying to break up the CFP monopoly that ESPN owns, who ESPN, their cash cow is the SEC. Like, that is their, that's why it's taken them so long to acknowledge the Big Ten as the premier conference over the past 3 years, is because they don't want to. Right? Fox, CBS, NBC, they are the major shareholders of the Big Ten. And granted, Ohio State, Oregon, and even Indiana was big business for ESPN during the playoff run, but they don't really get them at all over the regular season. And so there is a sense where you want to try to find ways to break up the CFP monopoly for the sake of the Big Ten, for the Big 12 even. I think the bigger thing down the road is if you can let these other media companies take a piece of the CFP now, it kind of breaks them in for the future discussion, which I believe is 2031, 2032, where all of a sudden you could have, similar to how the AFC and the NFC operate, where, say, CBS takes one half of round one and ESPN takes the other half of round one. And, you keep going, because you're going to have multiple interested bidders, which I think would, if we're going to a selection committee, like full selection committee, where it's all subjectivity, that is better for the sport to have multiple media companies involved rather than one.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think, unfortunately, ESPN has had their hand in the college football playoff too much. And I think that the college football playoff has, maybe ESPN hasn't outright tampered and said this team needs to be in and the college football playoff does it or anything like that. but you can definitely tell there's been favor toward the SEC, even going back to the Florida State Alabama thing,
Mhm.
where they got in. Alabama is the only team that has ever lost a conference championship game that has never dropped in the rankings. So when you look at things like that, makes it pretty obvious that maybe ESPN isn't outright meddling with it, but they do seem to have some type of influence in what is going on. Joe asks, so would the first and second round games be home for the higher ranked team? Yes. So Pete Thamel put that out there. The play-in games, essentially, you would have USC at home, BYU at home, Texas at home versus these teams. Virginia or Vanderbilt would be home against Virginia. And then that second round, which I also like, would then be home for the team that gets the bye, which is unfortunately right now an incentive that the bye teams do not get. And I think that that's something they definitely want to change to where if you are good enough to receive a bye, you also want the advantage of playing in your stadium, right? With your
Yeah.
fans. And if nothing else, the revenue that comes with that as well,
Yeah.
right? Texas Tech would want to play in Lubbock. Oregon would want to play in Austin, all those things. So if you're a top 8 seed, you would want that, and that could, possibly help with some of the issues we've seen teams that get buys get as well.
Yeah.
And I think to me that's another selling point to this 24 team field is that you get more home playoff games and not, the first round as a home playoff game, and then the second round after that is all buys from there on out.
Yeah. I think with the bye, right? Like you look at all the bye teams in the 12 team playoff era so far, you're playing a really, really good team, like a top 10, top 8 caliber team. That next game, they've had warm-up time, whereas the bye team hasn't. This time around, like I look at, for instance, Georgia off of a bye would play either Vandy or Virginia. It's like that's a much different game than them playing Ole Miss that next round. Or like Ohio State plays Utah or Michigan. Like those are still hard games, but it's not like playing Miami and you're playing Miami cold in a neutral site. So I do like that. Here's where at least in terms of format, I have a real problem. Why are we so stuck on the quarterfinals being bowl games or bowl sites?
Mm-hmm.
Like everybody loves the home playoff games. And quite honestly, if you're a fan of a team that goes all the way, the amount of money that they are expecting fans to drop, not just on tickets, but on travel
Yeah.
is insane.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Good.
let the quarter, like I'm okay with semis being bowl sites. I think that makes sense. But we've done this 2 years. I've gone to a quarterfinal game, right? Like I went to the Rose Bowl last year when Ohio State beat Oregon. And it was a great experience. I loved it. But then there were fans who are like, are you going to go to the Cotton Bowl afterwards? I'm like, no. Like, I'm sorry. I'm a normal person. I don't have that type of money. Like, and most people don't.
Yeah.
So what are we doing if this is supposed to be college football, supposed to be for fans of all ages? Can we please drop the quarters as bowl sites and make them home games?
Yeah, I'm in complete agreement. I would love to see the, 4 or 5 major bowl games be your final 4 destinations. I'm in total agreement with you. But, you know, I just don't think they're gonna continue to go for that because they have to try and fangle in these traditions of these bowl games and everything, which bowl games are going away. Like I've already talked about this on this show. Bowl games are going away. You've already seen 2 or 3 canceled this offseason. ESPN wants to get rid of them because ESPN wants to bring in the G5 playoffs instead. And then ESPN also would, like something like this, which is one of the reasons why I think Pete Thamel is probably breaking this out there and writing such a positive story on it is because ESPN, even though they probably would not have the rights to every single game on here, it would give them more games, and their playoff games would do far better ratings than the bowl games do, right? A bowl game versus App State and Boise State, and I'm not trying to disparage those teams, but that's not going to do nearly as well as Vanderbilt versus Virginia, right?
Yeah.
And so that's definitely something that ESPN's interested in, and then also that they hype up the G5 play or the G6 playoffs enough, they could get that in there as well. So to me, this is not perfect by any means.
No.
I am totally with Max, who liked the 4-4-2-2-4 16 team model. Honestly, that was probably my favorite one.
Yep.
But the Big 12 and the ACC are never going to agree to having less conference bids than the Big 10 and the SEC, which is stupid. They need to recognize who they are, and the Big 12 and is not going to get any more than one or two anyway right now, the way it is with the 12 team. So, and they probably wouldn't get any more than one or two in the 16 team. I mean, I think they would have got 13 last year because Utah was 15th, I think it was. So Utah might have been in there, but still, not all that many would have been in there.
Yeah.
And honestly, in this format, you probably would have got 3 in there anyway because of the 4 at-large bids that you had there. But anyway, that's not the point. The point is they're never going to go for the auto conference bids because the SEC doesn't want to automatically give away bids. So this is the complete compromise. This is exactly the Big Ten saying, we will give the SEC everything you want if you let us to go to 24 teams. Because the Big Ten is saying, we think our conference is better than yours, but right now we don't have the perception of that. We want to stop deciding who gets to play for a national championship based on probably and perception and start basing it on performance. And right now you're seeing people, even some people that have tried to tried to go out there for the Big Ten. I just saw somebody at On3 that, was trying to trumpet for the Big Ten this weekend. He said, well, Iowa shouldn't make it because they're probably never going to win it all. Why are we still deciding who should be in the playoffs based on perception and probably? I'm not saying that Iowa's going to win it all, but you know how many guys Iowa sent to the NFL Combine? 9. You know how many Indiana sent? 9. You know how many Oregon sent? 9. You know how many Texas A&M sent who didn't win a single playoff game? 13, the most out of anybody. And they didn't even win a single playoff game. So this whole idea of, well, talent is the end-all be-all is outdated. And this whole idea, well, you probably can't win it all if you don't have the brand bias or the perception or all this other stuff. It's just outdated. I understand. I don't think Iowa's going to win a national championship either. But did you see how crazy the Indiana fans got because their team went to the playoffs and they started winning some games? Who's Iowa play here? I don't even see. Iowa plays Miami. You imagine how crazy those Iowa fans would get if they beat Miami? Yeah. I'm not saying they would beat Miami, but if they did beat Miami and they go on to play Texas A&M, you're telling me right now that Iowa couldn't beat Miami and they couldn't beat Texas A&M? They could. They 100% could.
That game would be closer than people think, especially because Miami plays so up and down. Like this past season, they played so up and down. Right?
Well, Iowa had one of the best, if not the best, offensive lines in the nation. So you're seeing the best defensive line in the nation go, at least pass rushing defensive line, go up against one of, if not the best offensive lines in the nation. How is that not an interesting matchup?
Yeah.
And yes, Sam is exactly right. Iowa today is not the Iowa of the past. You are exactly right, Sam. Sorry. Yeah, go ahead, Zack.
Completely agree. Well, so I think this is where, and it's hard because I think in a perfect world, which I'm gonna, this is my caveat here. In a perfect world, I hate everything about this. I think it's too many teams.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's still subjective, right? Because it's 23-1. So it's like it's all about ranking teams, which it is the bane of my existence, right? Why can't we just line them up look at the conference records afterwards, and just go bing, bang, boom. In a perfect world, I hate this. And this is where I have to step back and say college football, because the NCAA hasn't done anything because they stink, is so broken that we have to make concessions to find ways to almost break it more that it's better. So a few things there. One, I hate that this is going to do away with bowl games, but it does fix a problem in that bowl games, A, were not entertaining. Well, I shouldn't say they weren't entertaining. They were entertaining, but they weren't popular. They were losing traction and popularity. And a big reason why is because your best players were sitting out. Players aren't going to sit out of this playoff because they know they have a chance to win something. At least for the most part. I'm sure there will be certain players that sit out at some point. But in general, you guard yourself from that. I think the other thing that you do guard against to some degree is that though it's subjective, there's so many teams that are getting in, and it was starting to trend this way anyway, but there's so many teams that are getting in that if the 25th team doesn't get in, it's kind of like, okay, who cares? Like, it was kind of already that way. I already felt that way. I'm like, the 13th team, like, and we said this with Notre Dame. Notre Dame, from a look standpoint, absolutely deserved to be in. But the problem is the playoff worked with Notre Dame in that they lost to Texas A&M and they lost to Miami. And if you're going to say that wins and losses matter, then those two teams should have been in over Notre Dame. And Notre Dame has no one to blame but themselves. Yes, they can blame Alabama. But still, Notre Dame put themselves in that position because they lost those two games. And that's the point of a playoff. But I can understand that this is another layer to protect, in a sense, protect integrity. But I hate that it's at the expense of like just looking at objective measures and saying, oh yeah, top four teams, like just like the NFL, your division winners, then the next best records, you're in the playoff. I hate that it's not objective, but I understand it.
Well, and I think Ryan Willie, I see your super chat. I'll get to that in just a second. I apologize. I want to make sure I get this point out there because I think Zach is making a really interesting point that I think can build onto this as well. I think if we saw the top four teams continue to dominate, right? Like a lot of people thought, perception wise, performance wise, and yes, there is something to getting that by and not playing as well at the beginning of the game and losing. I I could believe that is a big factor if it happened half the time, right? If teams that got a bye were 4-8 or something like that. But your teams that have got a bye in the 12-team playoffs are 1-8. The only team that has won is Indiana, who went on to win it all, right? Every other team that got a bye. And so it's showing us that this whole idea of perception and probably is not actual reality, right? A lot of people say, well, perception is reality. In this situation, it's not. Your perception of college football only having 4 teams that can win it all is not reality because the regular season cannot define that. And I recognize that is going against the tradition of what a lot of people have held with college football. And I get that. I don't like the, essentially dismantling of the regular season right now either and what that's doing. But I also think that this 2014 playoff could bring back some more meaning to the regular season. And I know that's going to sound backward for some people, but hear me out, because you're going to have teams like Iowa, like Virginia, that are going to be fighting for those very last spots. And if you're an Ohio State fan or you're an Alabama fan, you can say, oh, it doesn't matter. They're not going to win it all anyway. It does matter to that program. It does matter to them when they're playing games in November, right? Yes, September has never meant less than it does right now. But you want to know what means more right now? November. November has never meant more in college football, at least in terms of making the playoffs, the national championship, because there are actual teams that were out of it in September that are now going in November and saying, well, it's probably not going to happen, but who knows, right?
Yeah.
Michigan, well, we lost 2 games and we got blown out by USC. We're probably not going to get in, but if we beat Ohio State like we did the last 4 years, who knows? Or 3 years, whatever it was. Who knows? Or 4 years. Yeah, I think it was 4 years. Yeah, 2021, 22, 23. Yeah. Who knows?
Yeah.
Right? And so
And,
we can get on this thing of like, well, the regular season doesn't matter as much. The regular season doesn't matter the same way it used to. But it does still matter, just not for the same teams and not in the same way. Go ahead and give your comment, and then I want to get to Ryan Willie's super chat.
yeah. Well, I was just gonna say, I think it's been pretty clear. I've never bought into this idea that an expanded playoff would mean that the regular season wouldn't matter as much. And it's to what you're saying, right? Yes, games for your top teams, they don't hurt you as bad if you lose. But every game, like I think it's intensified the regular season. And for one, I like the fact that if you lose one, it's not you're on life support because no other sport is like that. And some people were like, that's what makes the sport great. No, I still remember in 2005, I was at the Ohio State Texas game where Vince Young throws a game winning touchdown pass in the end zone to Lima Swede. And I'm like, Ohio State season's over.
And that was what, the first or second game of the season?
Week
yes,
two.
Week 2. Yeah.
And like they played against the eventual national champions. That Ohio State team had 5 first-round picks.
Mm-hmm.
And the season was over in terms of their goal, at least in terms of their main goal. And so you're telling me that the regular season matters more with a smaller playoff? No. Ohio State season fell over by week 5. You had the Michigan game. That was it. So now it all matters. Unless you go 0-5 the first 5 weeks, then every season is still alive, right? That matters. And I think we have to understand that in this new world of college football, that's the most important thing is how many teams and their seasons still matter by November. I think you make a great point that football has never mattered more in November in the college game.
Thank you. Yeah, I completely agree with you. Ryan Willie, Evil Badger says there's been bias against the Big Ten ever since Delaney told ESPN to bleep themselves. Thank you for censoring yourself in there, Ryan Willie. I right? Like this has been one of the biggest issues for the Big Ten is ever since they went away from ESPN. It's not just been, well, we're going to back the SEC, but we're also going to do our best to try and disparage the Big Ten as much as we possibly can. Is it blatant? Not always, but just last year, there were 32 teams that ESPN said could make the playoffs, not win it all. 32 teams they said could make the playoffs. Zach, you know who wasn't on that list?
Iowa.
Indiana.
Oh, Indiana.
You know who made the playoffs? You know who won it all? Indiana. They had Virginia Tech on that list. I can go back and find it for you if you want me to. They had Virginia Tech on that list. Oh, they can make the playoffs, but Indiana wasn't on it. If you want to, as much as, yes, I don't think ESPN goes out of their way as much as some people say they do. It's also just kind of fun to talk about how much they probably go out of their way at times. But there is definitely a bias that ESPN has against the Big Ten. And if it didn't happen because of Delaney, it probably started with Delaney because they said, ESPN, we don't care. We're going to go off over here and do our own thing. And really that's been what makes everybody kind of hate the Big Ten. Is the Big Ten has always kind of said, well, we're going to go off and do our own thing. We're going to do what is best for us. We're going to do what we think is best. And so that perception has gradually been deteriorating for the Big Ten because of a media company or entertainment company, whatever they want to call themselves, in ESPN that tries to, bolster their own product over everything else. And I think that at the end of the day, like that is the biggest topic in all of this. I don't think you have to support the 2014 playoff and be a Big Ten fan. Like I totally understand people not wanting it and they have a Big Ten team. But I do think if you are somebody in the Big Ten that's not Ohio State, then you have to recognize that the 2014 playoff is for everybody in the Big Ten except for Ohio State, right? Because Ohio State's the team that's going to be in it no matter what. They're going to always be in the playoff if it gets to 24 teams. They might make it this year. I mean, they probably will make it this year at 12 team, but you never know. It's a really tough schedule. We'll see what happens. But at 24 teams, they're always going to be it. But it's the teams like Penn State that could have an off season, go 9-3, 8-4, that could still make the playoffs, right? Michigan, Indiana, that's still on the table for them. I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon, but it's still on the table for them. This is the type of thing that still gives those teams an opportunity to go out and play really good teams and say, hey, we may have lost some games in the Big Ten, but guess what? We're still a really good team, which was pretty much the Iowa story last year. Because Iowa, while they were not a great team at the beginning of the season, because Mark Gronowski, inexperienced, he developed throughout the season and looked a whole lot better. And by the end of it, played Vanderbilt. And I don't care what people say about like, well, that game didn't matter. It's a bowl game, anything else. Vanderbilt came out and said that's like the biggest postseason game they've ever played in their history. So don't come at me with like, well, Vanderbilt didn't care about that game. No, they did care. And yes, they had one tight end sitting out in that game. But they cared about that game. And Iowa won because Iowa was the better team.
Yep. I was just thinking a team that really would benefit from this, Iowa, obviously, but another team that would really benefit from this is Illinois, right? Like Illinois would have been on the cusp this past year. They would have been like the first couple teams out, but they are a team that if they can make a playoff, how much more does that bolster Bielema's efforts to make them into to move them from the middle of the Big Ten to upper tier, which is kind of like, I think you and I were both on the wagon that Illinois and not Indiana was going to make the leap this year. We got the wrong I team in, or at least I did. I had Illinois in the playoffs. But they are a team that would supremely benefit from this. Teams like Wisconsin that if Fickle can turn it around a little bit with a little bit of an easier schedule, obviously Iowa, but even a team like UCLA and USC for that matter, but UCLA, who they're trying to turn things around. But if they can catch fire one season, that like you're talking about an opportunity for these what we've seen as lesser teams to catch fire one season and then build tons of momentum.
And maybe they start to be looked at like Tennessee is looked at. Maybe they start to get looked at like South Carolina or Vanderbilt, right? It took Vanderbilt one season to be good, to have double-digit wins. And people said, wow, they might be a playoff team.
Yeah.
Right.
But let's be fair.
Iowa has a double-digit win season, and people still say they shouldn't be in a 2014 playoff. Right.
Yep. Let's be clear. People were enamored by Vandy after a 7-6 record because they beat a mediocre Bama team.
Yes.
That's why. And it was not they. I won't call them stupid, but it was a stupid idea that the whole reason why Vanderbilt was a playoff caliber team is because they beat an Alabama team that got outclassed by a beleaguered Michigan squad and then got steamrolled by Indiana in the playoff. It's absurd. Sorry, I'm going to get off my Vandy soapbox.
Beleaguered. That's a good vocab word for the Big Ten Huddle today.
Oh, there we go.
You got your vocab word of the day from Zack here. And I will say, like, there's some people in the chat talking about like 8-4 and like 2014 playoff and stuff like that. And I get that. Again, this goes against so much tradition of what we've known for college football. But I would remind people that even at 24 teams, this would still be the most exclusive playoff in major American sports. 17% of teams make the playoff. The next most exclusive is March Madness, which is at about 19%, because 68 out of 365.
There's what, 138 teams in major college football right now?
Yeah, so 24 of that is about 17%.
Yeah.
I don't think any other league has less than 20%.
Yeah. So someone in the chat said that they should be like NFL and be 12. You have to realize they're at 14. It's a 14 team playoff in the NFL. There's 32 teams. That is over 40%. Like the NBA, it's over 50% of teams make the playoffs. Right? Yeah. I think in terms of major sports, Major League Baseball might have the most exclusive in terms of professional.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I'll still say this. I empathize with what you're saying. I don't like 24. I like I said, in a perfect world, I don't think, and I want college football reforms so much. And if we have those college football reforms, then I'm all for turning back the clock and saying 12 or 16 teams. But for where we're currently at, I feel like you have to do something to mitigate some of the brokenness of the rest of the sport.
Yeah, and fight on that. He just said 24 teams, still too many chefs in the kitchen. I'm with you and Zach. In a perfect world, yes, it's too many, right? In the college football we grew up watching, and the college football that I knew back when I was 9 years old, and seeing Ohio State play for the very first time and everything else, and seeing Alabama play, and seeing all these teams, Michigan, everybody else seeing and actually caring about it. Obviously, I saw them before that, but actually caring about it. Yes, 24 is too much, right? But it's where this sport has gotten, that because the perception is not the same, because people want to live in this world of, well, this team probably can't win it all. We have to actually allow these teams to have the opportunity, if nothing else, to go out there and try to win games, right? Because we can say, well, just play this game in September, instead of in November or December. But guess what? As that year goes on, that win means less and less and less. You just saw it with Ohio State this season. Ohio State beat Texas week 1, the number 1 team in the country. By the end of it, everybody wanted to say, well, Ohio State, that wasn't actually a hard game. Texas actually isn't any good, So,
by the way, did you see ESPN's way too early All-American team?
No, I did not.
You want to know who their quarterback was?
Arch Manning.
It was Arch Manning.
It couldn't be the guy that just went to the Heisman ceremony, or it couldn't be the guy that was just the number 2 overall projected pick. No, it couldn't be either of those guys.
Yeah, no. It was although they were both honorable mention, but I think it's hilarious that Texas wasn't that good. Arch Manning's going to be amazing next year. What are we doing? Yeah. Seriously? Are we going to do this again?
Yeah.
He's got to prove it. I'm not. And I believe in the Manning name. I believe in the Manning family, all that stuff. But also, he's got to do something not against mediocre SEC competition at this point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I totally agree. And in fairness, he did beat Michigan, and he had a really good game beating Michigan. So if we're going to say that Michigan won their game against Alabama in the bowl game last year, we need to be consistent and say he did a good job beating Michigan last year in the bowl game, right?
Yeah. Against a beleaguered Michigan team without a lot of their players.
Beleaguered. Yes. There we go. Vocab word again. I love it. Beleaguered.
Yeah. And coachless.
Hey, do not disparage the good name Biff Poggi.
Sorry. That you're right. They had an upgrade in coaching. My bad.
They actually did. Have somebody in the locker room, Instagram DMing. Anyway, all right, just leave that alone. Leave that
Oh
alone.
dear.
And ML McCollum makes a good point here too. The tournament's not just about who wins the national championship anymore. Also, because of the conference rivalry we begin to see, and as much as not everybody gets on the conference rivalry, I get it. There are some people that say I will never root for my conference, yada yada, and I get that. Okay, not everybody has to root for a conference or anything like that. But because of where college football has become and what it has become, there are rooting interests outside of your team in your conference and everything else that also occurs for other fans. It may not happen for you in particular, but it does happen for other fans out there. And so we might not have a bracket that determines who's the best conference. But I tell you what, if Iowa wins their first round game, Michigan wins their first round game, and Vanderbilt loses and Texas loses and Alabama barely beats James Madison, you best believe everybody's going to be talking about how the Big Ten was actually better than the perception of the SEC, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, you kind of had that this year, right? And you had Oregon and Indiana clean up their side of the bracket. And that
Yeah.
like that's what really started that's what started the conversation. And I think it's helpful. You're kind of, I think, adding on to this point. The Big Ten dominated bowl season. And everybody during bowl season was like, well, this doesn't matter because people are opting out, yada, yada, yada.
Uh-huh.
Like Illinois beating Tennessee's nice, but again, you have opt-outs. And
Right.
Iowa beat Vandy. That's nice, but it's a bowl game. As soon as it got to the playoff, it's like, oh, Indiana did that to Bama.
Mm-hmm.
Oregon did that to Texas Tech.
Yeah.
Oh, even the Miami Ohio State game is like, Miami's actually might be the second best team in this tournament. Turns out they were. That I think, like, how much more so if those bowl games are playoff games? Like, how much does the tide turn? And I think that's a really good point.
I see what you did there. Tide turn. Like Alabama, the Crimson
Tide.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because the tide has turned on Alabama. They are not what they were under Nick Saban.
Yeah.
All right. I want to have some fun here at the end. We can do it for about 5 minutes really quick. Do you have any other thoughts on this 2014 playoff? This is not happening next year, just to make sure everybody realizes this is not happening next year. This is the leaked proposal by the Big Ten that they are advocating for. It might happen eventually someday, but this is not happening next year. We are staying at 12 teams next year. Yeah. Do you have any final comments?
My only thought, and this is probably disrespectful. I don't mean it to be. Okay. I don't mean it to be, but it's like, I like how it's like, this was a leaked plan. And it's like, it's a 2014 field that anybody could have invented. You know what we're going to do? We're just going to seed the teams 1 through 23 and then give a token group of 6 team a chance. And you know what? We're going to make it this big thing.
There's 2 group of 6 teams in here.
Well, but it's 23 and 1. It's 1 guaranteed spot.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Gotcha. But I'm just like, it's being leaked as if it's like this grand master plan. And it's like, anybody could have come up with this.
Yeah. This was actually sketched out on a napkin that Paul Feinbaum stole.
I really think it could have been. It's like, this is like a napkin from a Culver's that Tony Petitti stopped at. Tony Petitti could have stopped at a Culver's in Big Ten country.
Yeah. Is that where you think Tony Petitti eats at, Culver's?
I mean, I would.
Yeah, I would too. Every time I go on a diet, it's like Culver's. That's rough. All right, enough about my eating habits. We can go on. Let's have some fun. USC, Arizona, who wins?
Oh, USC.
Yeah, I agree. Alabama, James Madison, who wins? James Madison, just kidding. Alabama still wins.
I entertain JMU, but Bama.
Yeah. All right. Bama. BYU, Houston, who wins?
Reluctantly BYU.
I think it's BYU too.
Yeah.
Texas, Tulane, who wins?
Texas.
Vanderbilt, Virginia, who wins?
Vandy.
I think Vandy does too, but I do not think it would be as easy as maybe some people think.
Yeah, no.
Notre Dame, Georgia Tech.
Notre Dame.
Me too. Iowa, Miami.
I will make Miami fans mad and I'll pick Iowa.
The team that went to the national championship loses in the 2014 playoffs in their playing game.
Because I just think Miami would play down.
I also think that there would be more of a conversation about Iowa's rush offense and what they could possibly do with their better offensive line and the way Tim Lester could kind of scheme that up a little bit. Not that he's like the most schemy guy out there, but he just knows how to scheme up a run game.
Yeah.
So for the sake of us having an upset in the first round, let's go with Iowa.
Yeah. There we go.
Michigan, Utah.
Oh man, Utah.
I think you got to go with Utah.
Yeah. Yep.
All right, Ohio State, Utah.
Ohio State.
Same. Texas A&M, Iowa.
Is it weird that I actually think Iowa would beat Texas A&M too?
If Iowa would beat Miami, I think they would beat Texas A&M.
Yeah.
We are going full Big Ten homer on this show.
At least for Iowa.
Let's do it. All right. Iowa beats Texas A&M. Notre Dame, Ole Miss. I think Notre Dame.
Yeah. Yeah. Here's the spoiler alert. I think this is going to go very well for Notre Dame.
I agree. Vanderbilt, Georgia.
Georgia
too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Texas Tech.
This is hard, man.
I think I'm going to go Texas because
Texas
Tech just doesn't have the quarterback, I don't think, to go against that Texas defense.
Yeah, I think it's like a 7-6, it's like a 14-10, like a real.
I think it would. I would go with like 24-10, 24-6 or something like that. I think Arch Manning has a few big run plays.
But I mean, Oregon, Texas Tech was not like that was a snooze fest.
That's true. Okay, let's go 17-6, Texas.
Yeah, Texas.
BYU, Oregon.
Oregon, as long as Dante Moore doesn't throw a pick six in the first play.
I agree. Oklahoma, Alabama. We already saw that one. Alabama.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. Bama kills them.
Yeah. Indiana, USC.
Oh, Hoosiers.
Indiana, Alabama.
We saw this. Is it in the Rose Bowl? Yeah, it's in the Rose Bowl. Yeah,
we know. We know how this goes.
Yeah.
All right. So what we do? We chose Oregon and Texas. Oregon. I agree.
Yeah.
Georgia, Notre Dame. We saw it last year.
Notre Dame.
I
think Notre Dame would beat this Georgia team by multiple scores.
I think they would beat them better than they beat them last year.
Yeah.
I mean, Gunnar Stockton's improved, but I don't think that defense is nearly as good as it was the year before.
Yeah.
So, all right. Ohio State, Iowa.
Ohio State.
I agree. But I would not be surprised if Iowa won and Ohio State had a bit of a similar thing to what they had against Miami.
Yeah, I agree. I think Iowa's defensive line isn't nearly as disruptive, though, as Miami's.
Ohio State, Notre Dame. I'm going to go with Notre Dame.
I am too. Notre Dame.
Which is not what's happened the past 3 years, but based on what we saw Ohio State do against Miami.
Yep.
Yeah. Indiana, Oregon. We saw that before. Indiana. So that's Indiana
multiple times.
Yeah, Indiana versus Notre Dame national championship. We still get the same thing. Indiana wins it all.
Yeah, I think Hoosiers win, but
it's about the journey of how we got there, right?
Yeah.
Fight on that. He says they upset Indiana.
Not this year, not this past year, but I do like USC next year though.
Yeah. I do think there was possibility for Ohio State to lose sooner. I just don't think Utah had the guys to make Sayan melt down.
Yeah. Miami and Indiana were really bad matchups for Ohio State.
Mm-hmm. Well,
And
two
I'm
best
not
defensive lines in the nation. Them and
right.
Texas Tech were the top
I'm
three,
not
I think.
I'm not sure anybody else on that side of the bracket has the type. I think here's the other thing is if Ohio State got here's a thought experiment. If Ohio State got Miami after Ohio State had a tune up, like how would that have helped? It may not have. I'm like I think Miami probably beats Ohio State 6 or 7 times out of 10. Like cuz I just think Miami's a bad matchup for Ohio State. But
Yeah.
is there a difference with how Ohio State plays if they had a little bit more of a warm up?
Well, and I think also too that I mean, I don't think enough people talk about that Ohio State, and this was Ryan Day's own stupid decision. I'm not trying to take anything away from Miami because it was Ryan Day's own stupidity. But going to a silent count in that game, where Miami was just able to tee off the entire time.
Yeah.
You play that Ohio State Utah game at Ohio State, you know, unless they go to a silent count at home, which oh boy. So,
Yeah.
all right, well, I think that wraps up our discussion about the 2014 playoff. Anything else, Zach, before we get out of here?
I'm just gonna call out Philip on this. I have picked not on this show, but I have picked Iowa over Ohio State before.
Big Ten football talk.
Was it there? It probably was not on the record, but I
Okay.
know. Well, so I'll say I remember 2017. This was before the season.
Mm-hmm.
I remember looking at their schedule and being like, and I did this 2 years in a row where I was like, I looked at the schedule ahead and I'm like, I really hate that Ohio State's playing Iowa here, and that's an upset alert. And then the following year, 2018, I'm like, Ohio State's got to play at Ross Aid. That sucks. They're probably going to lose that game. Both years, I was right.
Watch out. Zach's got his radar for when Ohio State's going to get upset.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I'm on the record this already 9-3 season coming in. So I actually don't love Ohio State's playoff. But
it's the toughest schedule in the Big Ten, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think so. I think so.
All right. Hey, everybody. Thanks for hanging out with us. Thanks for being here in the chat. If you're listening on podcast, thank you for being here listening on podcast as well. Make sure we did not miss any super chats. We did not. Thanks for being here, everybody. Check us out Tuesday night. Zach and I live here again on Tuesday night at 9 p.m. And listen to this. I'm going to have Greg Flugar with me for the Tuesday morning show. Going to record that tomorrow night. We're going to talk about this SEC silo stuff that he's got going on. Love Greg. He does great work over there at Peak Around the Corner. We're going to talk about that. We're talking about the possibility of the Big Ten 10-game conference schedule that could possibly be coming up on the horizon. Greg is one of the most plugged in people, and he does a great job. And so I'm excited to bring him on the show and talk about that. So next podcast, you get me and Greg. Podcast after that, you get me and Zach. It's going to be a good time. So thanks, everybody. Appreciate you being here. Have a good one. We'll see you next time.